This is an active crime scene behind me. The shooting took place here between two townhouses. And if you look on the hill behind me, you will see police investigators who have been on the scene all day long. The victim was a member of the Maryland National Guard. The alleged shooter is a former police officer in the state of Washington who had been investigated in connection with two police-involved shootings about 20 years ago. Police investigators gathering evidence into the fatal shooting of 24-year-old Javon Prather.
I heard 6 or 7 shots, I guess. And since I'm a Army combat veteran, I was pretty sure those were gunshots.
Prather's mother gave me his picture, saying he worked as a manager at Giant Foods. He served in the Maryland National Guard 6 years and was planning to re-enlist. She showed up at his West Springfield home, which is now a crime scene.
It's the first time. I don't know what to say. But my son was a good man.
Police say 52-year-old Michael Heddle is in custody, charged with second-degree murder and use of a firearm in the commission of a felony. He's a former police officer. The city of Bellevue, Washington, tells us he served there from 1994 until 2001. Heddle was investigated in connection with 2 police-involved shootings there, and we are told he was cleared of any wrongdoing. Heddle resigned in 2003 after he was recalled by the U.S. Navy as a commissioned officer.
He's been giving my son and his wife problems for a very long time. Verbal threats, calling the neighborhood association, even complaining about dog feces in the backyard.
But one neighbor blames Prather for causing the problems, saying, "Check his arrest record. We found he was recently charged with assault and drinking in public." Police are investigating what sparked the shooting Tuesday evening that killed Prather.
Nobody deserves to die like that. I don't care what kind of disagreements you're having or whatever. No one deserves to die in cold blood like that.
She says Javon Prather's wife is distraught. She was on the scene at the time of the shooting and witnessed the whole thing. That's the latest live in West Springfield. Wendy, back to you.
Chris Gordon, thank you, Chris. Former police officer shot his neighbor to death. Fox 5 has learned a protective order was in effect between the accused shooter and the victim's wife. Fox 5's Tisha Lewis is live now with the details tonight. Tisha.
And 2 days after all of this, you can see the blue balloons behind me at the victim's home. This is where 24-year-old Javon Prather lived with his wife, Janelle. Now, we did some digging at the Fairfax County Courthouse, and this is what we found. A protective order, as you mentioned, that was filed last May. It was currently in effect and was set to expire in May of 2021. It was filed by the suspect, 52-year-old Michael Hetley, against Janelle Prather. That is Javon Prather's wife. Now, we don't know the details and circumstances of the protective order, but we do know it was in place. We do know a judge ordered no contact, also no violence. Now, again, all of this was signed off by a judge and ordered, again, no contact between Janelle Prather and Michael Hetley or his family. It also orders Prather not to commit any acts of violence. Ultimately, it was Hetley who was accused of fatally shooting Javon Prather Tuesday in what neighbors and family describe as an escalating feud between the two neighbors. Blue balloons outside the Prather family home today, where we're told Prather lived with his wife, 2 dogs, and Fox 5 has learned a tenant who was leasing the basement.
I'm renting this house, and I sometimes talk to him. I'm coming last month, I'm renting here, and I sometimes talk to her. I've talked to him. Very nice guy. People can talk, but that means not kill or do like this thing, you know. This is not good idea. I'm like my heart break, this kind of thing. I never see this.
And that tenant telling us he moved here about a month ago. In the meantime, neighbors and family say the victim and suspect were continually fighting over loud music, visitors, and even dog feces in the backyard. Michael Hetley, the NASA employee and former police officer, remains behind bars tonight. He's charged with second-degree murder. Now, Fairfax County Police not commenting on anything, including the circumstances leading up to this shooting. Back to you.
The feud between next-door neighbors in Northern Virginia began over issues as common as unscooped dog poop, loud music, and messy garbage cans. But over years, the dispute spiraled out of control, building to the moment during the spring of 2020 when Javon Prather rang Michael Heddle's doorbell. Heddle, a 52-year-old NASA executive, answered with a gun. Without a word, Heddle fired 3 shots at 24-year-old Javon, a scene that was captured by Heddle's Ring camera. Wounded, Javon tried to run, but 3 more blasts followed him down Heddle's front stairs. Javon collapsed before Heddle fired a 7th and final shot into Javon's body. Heddle then turned and began pointing the gun at Javon Prather's wife, Janelle, who was just feet away next door. Heddle turned to Janelle and asked, "Do you want some too?" Javon died and Heddle was charged with murder. But views over which man was the instigator in that final confrontation have divided the neighbors just as much as the feud that led up to it. The argument touches on race, class, and the perennial tensions over neighbors who share a common wall in a townhouse community. This was an execution, a Fairfax prosecutor said in court, as he argued that Heddle should remain jailed pending his trial. Heddle's attorney volleyed back that it was something else entirely, self-defense. Megan Matoka, Heddle's attorney, told a judge security footage didn't show threats that Javon Prather made before making his way over to Heddle's front door, and Javon had made a motion that led her client to think that he had a weapon. Prosecutors say that Javon Prather was not armed. Matoka said that Heddle was a homeowner who had dealt with threats and provocations from the couple next door for too long. Mr. Prather and his wife Janelle Prather, as well as the many occupants and transients that have come and gone from their home, have tormented and terrorized the residents of their community since they moved in, Matoka told a judge. To the Prathers, the dispute seemed to be about more than just neighborhood nuisances. The couple, who are mixed race, thought Heddle was trying to run them out of the Springfield community because of their identity. That sense was later justified after the tragedy when Janelle Prather learned that Heddle, who is white, is also a former police officer who killed 2 people in the line of duty and was once disciplined after allegations of bias in a traffic stop. He wanted to do anything he could to get us out of the neighborhood, Janelle Prather said of Heddle. Now, things started very differently on Bedstraw Court. The Daventry neighborhood has grassy common areas, shady paths, and a community pool. It is the type of place that residents describe with one single word: quiet. Janelle Prather bought her home with gray siding and a cranberry door in 2013. She said Heddle's wife, a Fairfax County schools administrator, popped over that first year with Christmas cookies. Heddle and his wife would walk their dog and chat with neighbors. Little seemed amiss at first. A drizzle of complaints began in 2015. Neighbors noticed people coming and going from Janelle's home both day and night, and the smell of marijuana wafting from the property. According to a lawsuit later filed against Janelle Prather by the Homeowners Association, they claimed she was violating neighborhood rules. The issues grew in the following years, with neighbors complaining about drunken parties, loud music, loose dogs, unscooped poop, and domestic disputes at Janelle's home. There were complaints that visitors threw bottles and condoms into other people's yards and even asked neighbors for use of cell phones and bathrooms, according to this lawsuit. "We knew that house as the problem house," another neighbor describes the Prathers' home. Janelle acknowledged some of these issues in an interview, but said that others were being misrepresented. She said Heddle had a surveillance camera on her home and frequently made complaints to the Homeowners Association and police. "He really made it miserable to live here," Janelle said of Heddle. Amid the issues, however, Janelle married Javon in 2017, and family described him as funny, someone who couldn't get through a conversation without cracking a joke. Javon was a specialist in the Maryland National Guard, something Janelle said he loved. He was planning to re-enlist. Now, Janelle traces the turning point between the Prathers and Heddle to a single day in February of 2019. She says she returned home from a funeral to find Javon raging mad. Heddle came up to me and said, "Do the neighborhood and the HOA a favor and move out." Drained from the funeral, Janelle says she marched over to Heddle's home and cursed him out. She says she told him if he wanted them out so badly, he should buy her home. That next month, Janelle was charged with destruction of property after hurling candlesticks and bottles at Heddle's car during another argument, according to court records. She eventually pleaded guilty to a misdemeanor, and a judge required her to pay $1,800 in restitution. After that, Heddle got a restraining order against Janelle. The Homeowners Association also sued Janelle in April of 2019 over ongoing issues at her home. In September, Heddle called the police again on Javon during a heated argument. At that time, Javon was arrested for being drunk in public. Heddle states that Javon was spewing threats and he attempted to get a restraining order against Javon, but that was denied. In 2019, Fairfax County Police responded to the Prathers' home 49 times, police records show. Janelle has spent thousands on an attorney to defend herself against the Homeowners Association lawsuit, and she feared that she might lose her home. Janelle said that she and Javon knew little about Heddle, who lived next door. She said that she sometimes did a Google search on him to try to find out more. The one thing that she said might have made a difference didn't show up in her search results: that Heddle had been a police officer with a controversial tenure. Before working his way up the ranks at NASA, Heddle held a job across the country with the Bellevue Police Department in Washington State. In the span of a year, Heddle was involved in 2 fatal shootings and a traffic stop, for which he was disciplined after allegations of anti-immigrant bias. Heddle and another officer shot and killed a bank robbery suspect in 2000 after the man charged toward one of them holding a gun, Bellevue police said. The shooting was ruled justified. A month later, Heddle pulled over an Ethiopian immigrant. According to a disciplinary letter from the Bellevue department, Heddle made comments about the woman's ethnicity and ability to speak English, sent a request to the state to make her retake her driver's test, and told her he was going to get her deported. In 2001, Heddle shot and killed a Guatemalan immigrant while responding to a domestic violence call, Bellevue police said. Heddle ordered the man out of his car and fired on him after he reached for his waistband. Heddle's attorney said a weapon was found inside of the man's car, but nothing was on his person. Heddle was cleared of wrongdoing, but the shooting sparked protests by members of Bellevue's Latino community and allegations of racial bias. Heddle's attorney said that he shot the man because he feared for his life. Heddle left the department in 2003 and moved to the D.C. area. Now, NASA has declined to comment on what the agency knew of his history before he was hired in 2010. Janelle says she was sick when she learned of Heddle's past. "If Javon and I had known that, we would definitely have not bickered with him," she said. Heddle's attorney says she thought that Javon Prather was aware that Heddle was a former police officer. Either way, the feud carried on. About 2 weeks before the shooting, Janelle says she was playing hip-hop in her car in front of her home, and Heddle opened up one of his windows and said to her, "Turn the music down, you're ghetto." 2 days before the shooting, Janelle and Javon put their townhouse on the market, in part because they were fed up with the dispute and because of the issues with the homeowners association. Heddle's attorney outlined his version of the shooting in a bond motion that was filed in June of 2020. The day of the shooting, Javon Prather was taunting Heddle and blasting music from his car, according to this account. In response, Heddle called the police non-emergency number several times that afternoon. Just before the shooting, Prather grew aggressive, according to this account. Javon pounded on the common wall between the Prather's home and Heddle's home, and then he ran up the steps to Heddle's front door. Javon pounded on Heddle's door so loudly that the townhouse shook, according to Heddle's account. Heddle said he opened up his door and shouted, "Get back!" Javon's hand was in his pocket, according to Heddle's account. When Javon removed his hand, Heddle thought that he had a weapon and opened fire. Janelle said the trauma has made her memories fuzzy, but she says she does not think the shooting was provoked. She says she remembers things clearly from the moment Heddle's front door opened. She said Heddle was wearing wraparound sunglasses and had a gun pointed at her husband. After the shooting and Heddle's threat against her, she says she ran to where Javon had collapsed face down, rolled him over, and tried to drag him toward their home. Blood ran from his mouth. Janelle says she slapped his face, telling him again and again, "Wake up." She said Heddle had a simple rejoinder: "Javon's not going to wake up." He turned and walked back into his home and shut the door, as if nothing happened, she said. Blood covered Janelle's hands and shoes as she shouted for someone to call 911, but it was too late. Now, Heddle remains in jail as he awaits trial. His family sold the Bedstraw Court home after the shooting and they moved out. Janelle still owns her home, but said she will not return. Okay, so there are a couple things that unnerve me about this case. One, how is it that Michael Heddle is able to have a police officer job across country in Washington state? He has all these write-ups. He has pulled people over, by his traffic stops. He's threatening the Ethiopian woman, telling her that I'm going to make the state make you retake your driver's test. First off, where do you get off even doing that? This was a simple traffic stop. So why are we going into sending letters to the state demanding that someone retake their driver's test? Then you shoot someone that does not have a gun on them. But this is the pattern with him. This is the same thing that he said when shooting Javon, that he thought they had a weapon. That is how he got out of trouble with both of those previous shootings on the police force, and that's how they were justified, because each time he thought they had a weapon. And that's what the pattern is with a lot of these police officers that fire in the line of duty. They thought they had a weapon. Now, with the person that did the bank robbery, okay, he charged at them with the gun. There are other areas of the body you can shoot someone. You don't have to shoot them in a detrimental part of their body to kill them. You can shoot them in their legs. You can shoot them in their arms. You can shoot them somewhere else to just, dismobile them, not kill them. And then the second shooting, the Guatemalan person, you're called to handle a domestic dispute and you end up killing the person. This man has a history of violence. He has a history and is prone to killing people. And yet he's able to come to Washington, D.C. and now get a job at NASA. NASA declines to comment on whether or not they knew about his disciplinary troubles before they hired him. Well, I'm going to take a wild guess and say that they did know. A lot of times this is what happens with white people. They are allowed to continue to have good jobs. They're allowed to continue to go on about their business, about their lives, even after having very troublesome past, even after being written up on previous jobs. This man was not only written up, he killed 2 people. It is known that he is pulling people over, biased traffic stops, but still yet he's remaining on the force. He was not put off the force. He wasn't suspended. He left. He left and was able to join NASA as a top executive. This just makes me so infuriated, because here it is, black folks, brown folks, people of color. We have hard times just getting jobs with a background for $10 an hour or $12 an hour, let alone a damn job with a salary that of a NASA employee. They allow white people to get away with murder. They allow white people to get away with things that we could never. We could never. Here it is, we got to beg, borrow, and steal to get a job at Amazon, to get a job at UPS, to get a job in a factory, to get a job making $8 an hour. And here it is, this man has been a police officer. He's killed before. He's racial profiled, and he's working at NASA. Well, I guess you don't want to comment. But, you know, with Janelle and the Prathers, their history, well, we all know those type of neighbors. We all live in those type of neighborhoods where, and it can be a nuisance. It can be a nuisance when your neighbors are smoking weed and when they got people. But see, this is what I would like, you know, my people, my black and brown people to understand. When you move in communities that are suburban and you're around white people, you can't live like that. You can't be partying, smoking, drinking, having your peoples over. They acting a fool out in the yard. What are they doing asking the neighbors, can they use their restroom or use their cell phones? Why are they asking neighbors stuff like that? So what type of friends, I need to know what type of friends they have and what type of people they are, that you're allowing your friends and you're letting them do that. First off, your friends should not even be asking your neighbors anything, let alone drawing attention to your house. So there was a lot going on in this story. Did not justify murder. It did not justify this man's life being taken from him. And then the story doesn't really talk about whether or not they have children. I know they just recently got married in 2017. So it really doesn't talk about whether or not they have kids or not. But this is sad. This is sad for both families involved. It's, you know, Janelle's family, Javon's family. This is very sad. They lost their loved one, and this man killed him in cold blood, walked right up on him and shot him, then tells the wife he's not coming back, he's not waking up, he's dead. Like, that's horrible. It was heartless. It was just a calculated murder. It was premeditated. I don't believe it was a spur of the moment thing. It was premeditated. He planned on killing Javon that day, to have wraparound black sunglasses. And what did he do? He said the same thing that he always says. Oh, I thought he was reaching for a weapon. I thought he had a weapon. So that would make it justifiable. Just because you think someone has a weapon, just because you think someone is reaching for something, that does not give you the right to kill them. So I'm sick of this argument, and I'm sick of that response whenever a white person shoots and kills a black man. It has to be, oh, I thought he had a weapon. Oh, he was about to pull out on me, so I fear for my life. That's this man's MO. With every shooting that he has ever been a part of, that has been his MO. That he thought the person had a weapon, he feared for his life, and both times prior, he got away with it. Well, this time, you didn't get away with it. He is in jail for murder, and he will be being found guilty of murder. This was a cold, calculated murder, and he planned this murder. All right, guys, that concludes this edition of Fear Thy Neighbor for our Frightober Halloween special. Let me know what you think about this video. Drop down in the comments section below. I'm interested to know what you think about Janelle and Javon, their lifestyle choices, their friends, the drinking, the partying, the neighbors, asking the neighbors could they use the restroom and their cell phones. How do you feel about that? Do you have neighbors that party, drink, smoke, and does that irritate and aggravate you? I'm interested to know about that, because that was interesting, that they had the police called on them 49 times. Even though the husband was murdered, it does not justify the homicide in no way, shape, or form. I'm interested to know what you're feeling about them as neighbors. You know, I just feel like as neighbors, we do owe it, and we have a responsibility to each other to be respectful of our living spaces. And especially when you're living in the suburbs and you're living in a suburban area. So I would like to hear from you. Drop it in the comments section below and let me know your thoughts. As far as the killer, the shooter, we don't respect the shooter. White is right. How do you feel about him working for NASA after having 2 homicides already, 2 shootings on his jacket? And of course, they don't call it a homicide. It's justifiable. It's a justifiable shooting, but it was giving racial inequality. It was giving bigotry. It was giving traffic stops. He gonna stop the person and tell them they gonna have to retake their driver's test. This man was off the chain. And of course, NASA is not commenting on whether or not they knew. So I want to know what you think about all of that. Drop it down below in the comment section. As always, be sure to like this video, share this video, but most importantly, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you on the next episode. Bye.